I am the better man, but I
Yeah.
shouldn't be held responsible because you wanted to choose a Pookie and a Ray Ray. That's not me. I worked too
And
hard
I'm
in
gonna
my
go back
life.
to what I said. Pookie and Ray Ray shouldn't exist. And the only reason why Pookie and Ray Ray exist because we're not in the community making those boys the men they need to be.
Absolutely narrative driven.
Yeah.
There's no more black men that are quote unquote Pookies and Ray Rays than there are in any other community. So the question becomes, how are we defining what's an appropriate ratio? Is it comparatively speaking? Because if it's comparatively speaking, then we're doing okay. But if we're deciding that we want to make our own arbitrary metric about what's a good amount of Pookies and Ray Rays for us based on what we think is good, well, that's a separate conversation that requires some follow up research and studies to be done to figure out what's the best way of figuring out the proper number of Pookies and Ray Rays for proper efficiency and maintenance of the relationship dating market, because Pookies and Ray Rays do serve a purpose. Like, let's be clear about this. Pookies and Ray Rays serve the purpose of removing the pussy holes from the segmented population of women that good men have to pick from.
Now, the one of the gentlemen, one of their rebuttals were black women ignore good men. See, this is when I felt like they should have dug their heels in. They talk to more women their age than Umar. So in that regard, they have better insight because that's what their podcast is about. Talking to women within this specific age range about how they date and what they like and all these things. And from what I've seen from the podcast and from what we've all seen throughout the internet, there are there are a certain number of women who desire the undesirables. They say the question is, who would you rather have, a scammer, a drug dealer, or a person who works a 9 to 5? And the majority of them, especially the black women, say they either want the scammer or the drug dealer. So let's just be honest. Black women are ignoring good men. Remember the tweet about Michael B. Jordan when the women say he looked too responsible, he looked
Mhm,
boring, he looked like he's too good of a man.
mhm.
Like, so there is a loud minority of black women out there, but the
So,
problem with
so
that loud minority is they're not being challenged by the silent majority.
well. Hold on for a second because we got to really redefine what undesirable means. Because if these men are the ones that are desired to father children, if these men are the ones that are desired to be procreated, are they truly undesirable brothers? Or is this the selection that this the cognitive and conscious selection that a lot of sisters are making? Um,
So you saying
and
behavior, you saying negative behaviors are being reinforced?
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at it from a perspective. You got a man that has 10 children by 6 different women, and then you hear from him again. This man has 15 children by 9 different women. And I mean, these are real numbers. We know
Mhm.
of stories of men with 35 children
34.
by
Yeah,
22 different women.
yeah.
And this is not an uncommon thing. So, what is it about this man that makes number 4 and 5 think he's going to be a good father for their children when he hasn't been there for the first 3? What is it about choosing this man? And a lot of times you'll find out that it's libido driven. Like it's libido driven. And let's face it, with the young brother, I believe his name is Eli, was saying, and he didn't get to the numbers, but when you poll women, women only want the top 10 to 20% of men, and actually the top 10 to 15% of men that they identify. But when you start talking about, well, what do they describe? I think it was a comedian. I forget the young sister's name, but she said she was talking to a therapist, and the therapist said to her, "What kind of man do you want? Do you desire?" And she described the kind of man, the physique, and all this other stuff, the qualities. And then she just said, "Well, what do you think you need from a man?" And she started talking about the things she needs: responsibility, somebody's reliable, somebody's trustworthy. She said, "You realize you just described 2 different men." And what we have to deal with was the fact that most women want 2 different men. They want the man that they crave, that they want to desire, that they want to procreate with, the guy that makes their parts tingle. And then they want the guy that's going to be the family man, the responsible man, the reliable man to take care of said family. And this
That's
is
cross
stuff that,
cultural. That's cross
well,
cultural.
but see, in the chaos that we live in, it makes perfect sense. There was just a meme that was just out a few days ago, and I know the sister was joking, but you know, it's a little bit of truth in every joke. And when she said, when you find out you're pregnant, you need to go find a responsible father for your child. You know what I'm saying? We know that that happens. And we know that that's a part of the broken culture that we live in because we don't have shame anymore. There used to be a time where if you were out of wedlock or you were a teenage mother and you had a bunch of children, when those children were born, those children had to go down south. And now those children became your cousins because they were given to an aunt or somebody down south to raise or things of that nature. That's what used to happen up here in the north. We don't have shame anymore. Man, there used to be a time when a man was no good for being on the corner, and all he would do is out there singing, and at that time there would be winos, drinking wine, whatever, like Coolie High. Those guys were not glamorized in the community. Those guys they were ostracized, therefore they couldn't sit on anybody's step, they had to sit on the corner. These are the standards we don't have anymore. And then we wonder why the community is in chaos. So the only time somebody is talking about we need leadership is when we're in trouble. The only time we're talking about we want order and structure is when the bullshit we tried to pull together falls apart. As you said, and let's talk about numbers. Women have much more sex. Young ladies to young women to older women have much more sex than men. And it's something we don't talk about because the stigma is only focused on the ladies' man. I got news for y'all. The reason why it's glorified when a man sleeps with a lot of women, but the exact opposite is attributed to the women who sleeps with a lot of men is because it's harder for men to court and gain access to sexual access to women than the other way around. All of us right now, well, Pat, I'm gonna leave you out as you married. But me and Joe right now can call 20 different women right now, and most likely, if they weren't prepared to have sex with us, we don't have access to them tonight. 20 women can make 1 or 2 phone calls and somebody's pulling up because the access is much easier for them to have that type of relationship, and they know this. And even Umar spoke to this, that women can have a man in their bed every night. But the problem is too many of the situations that occur make you undesirable to the man you want.
So last time I looked at the census, most of the men who are not married and black, it was 25% black, 29% Hispanic, 21% white, and 14% Asian. Those percentages make up the men who are producing children outside of marriage. Most men aren't making the babies. Most men are single and childless. He talked about, because he said that the young men were using feminist talking points, but then Umar also said that there were not enough available or good black men for black women, which is a feminist talking point, because all you have to do is look at the statistics. Go to blackdemographics.com and you can see that there are enough eligible black men for black women. It's just not true. And so I thought it was kind of funny that he told them they were using feminist talking points, but he was using feminist talking points, because to say that there's not enough black men, like I've been hearing that since the 80s. So
Bruh. And I'm just gonna give you some anecdotal stuff that I see working at a local college here in Philadelphia. In my office that's focused on primarily young black males. The only guy in that office that have a black girlfriend is one of the white kids. Sisters don't even pour into that office looking for those young brothers. But the office, we constantly have to beat the door down and block up, keep access for Asian girls and Latinas coming in that office. But these guys that are interested because they're not seen as they don't have the swag. These guys are going to be the next tech millionaires. These guys are going to be the next, Microsoft generators, creators of technology. That's the stuff they're working on right now. They are tomorrow's digital geniuses today, and they can't get a sniff of none of the sisters that come to that campus. And the campus is 70% female, and it's so black that it gets the benefits of a historical black college.
Well, and to that, because the other thing, right? Like to take it back, I love to simplify things. Um, and the simplification for the because what PC said is accurate, but I just want to simplify it because I love it because the simplification bothers people. The reason why men can have a lot of sex and be applauded for it, and women can't, is because women like men that have a lot of sex,
Mm-hmm. And they
and
applaud
men
us.
don't like women that have a lot of sex.
Here you
Right.
go.
That's the simplification. So if the young girls want to remove that double standard, they need to stop liking men that have a lot of sex. That's how you fix that. Because that's one of those problems that men can't solve. The prize is sex for these young dudes. So if
Hmm.
the prize is sex and me having sex gets me more sex, what
Why would I
benefit
stop?
is there in me turning down sex?
Right.
You have been Pookie incentivized.
I'm just
Right.
saying. I'm
You've
just
been
saying.
pooped.
But
So
but
then,
I just think it's. Go ahead. My bad. Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, go ahead, Joe.
It's just disingenuous to continue to push a narrative that the majority or even more than half of black men are pookies and ray rays.
What?
That's just not true. Looking at because I was looking at earnings, and it's like there are 69% of black men who are in the labor force. There 87% of the black men who are in the labor force are employed. They got about 20% who are under the poverty level. The median full-time earning for black men in 2021 was 46,000. 37% of black men are working full-time year round. There was 41% who reported no earnings, but 22% earn part-time or other. 41% of black men are white collar. 39% of black men are blue collar. 21% are in service occupations. Most black men are out making a good living for themselves. They're just like the young man said, they are being overlooked. There are loud minorities in both black men and black women who are out there. Now, the only difference is black men are actually pushing back and challenging the loud minority of black pookies. On the other side, the pookies is not being challenged if we want to be honest about it. But
Well,
do
but
not continue.
go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
Joe. I'm sorry. No, I'm just saying, like you had women out here who are defending the twerking that took place in Ghana over the past week at the castle where I forget the name of the castle,
Elmina
where
Cap.
Elmina Castle, where's the last place many of our ancestors who are our direct ancestors, so we're the direct descendants of slaves, our direct ancestors. Some of them died in those places. That's hallowed ground. In the twerking, it wasn't done in a ceremonial form. It was done very tasteless, very despicable, degenerative behavior. And to just echo what you were saying, there were a lot of people, mostly sisters, who tried to defend the fact that these women were twerking at that ceremonial place.
yeah, and I agree with you, Joe. And I also noticed that he accused he accused the brothers of using feminist talking points, and his entire argument was one big ass feminist talking point.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and it 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 was grating to listen to. Like it was
Yeah.
painful to hear, because even in a space created by men for men to talk, whether or not you agree with what those men are saying or not, you still have to contend with the ideas of women that don't necessarily uh, have the best of intentions for the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Because let's be clear about this. He's saying he's saying that when a woman says that she don't need no man, that's coming from a place of pain. Okay, cool.
I would say come from a place of feminism, but okay.
No, but to me, at this point, with the way they're used, those are interchangeable. Pain and feminism is the same thing. At
You
this point,
chose
with the way
pain.
they're used.
You chose
But
pain.
so why don't I, when as a black man that's experienced nearly the same thing, virtually the same thing that you've experienced, when do I get to speak from pain? You're telling me that those sisters have to understand that when they go overseas, they can't talk to those black men like that. But those black men, by your logic,
Well, the
are
first
just
one.
as worthy of that shit talking as we are, because they haven't done nothing for these women either.
But they would have, I mean, yeah, with that logic, with that logic, we wouldn't be over here in America if battles were won in Africa,
Right.
right?
And that's the
So,
exact point I'm making, right? Like, how is it that the brothers on the continent get a pass, even though and with the logic you're using, they're even more responsible for the conditions than we are. But we don't get a pass, but they do.
but show me the group of people who were oppressed behind enemy lines was ever able to make that self-actualization like he's speaking of. Where are the examples?
But see, and you taking it, you're and I respect where you're taking it. I'm still stuck at the logic part, because the logic ain't logicking.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, like it's not.
I'm just adding to it.
Yeah, it's not making sense. And then he says she couldn't find a man strong enough. Well, if that ain't a feminist talking point, then I don't know shit about feminism. What the hell does that even mean? To 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 be strong enough to, and this is an argument that comes up a lot when we start talking about men that interracially date. He's not strong enough to, what is that? And again, I'm married to a black woman, never been with nobody but black women. I love black women. But whenever I hear that, I wonder, especially over the last 5-10 years, one, what does it mean to be strong enough to deal with you? And two, why do I need to be strong enough to deal with you? That does not sound like a pleasurable experience that I'm getting anything out of, that I got to deal with you and be strong enough to do. It sounds like I got to go home and box 12 rounds with Mike Tyson to get a sandwich every goddamn day.
Sound like you're
That's
dealing with
not
a cage
preferable.
animal. That's what it sounds like. You're dealing with an animal. That's what it sounds like. But I mean that right there in itself. So we're gonna scald black men for interracial dating. We finna teeter into this interracial dating thing. We're gonna scald black men, but black women get a pass for interracial dating. That doesn't help us come together. But like you said, if we both experienced the atrocities of slavery, it affected both of us greatly. I think anybody who tries to say either black women had it worse or black men had it worse, I think both sides are crazy. How do you quantify that? How do you go back and quantify that? You can't. But what we do know is we both were affected greatly by the institution of slavery, racism, and everything that continues to this day. Right. So if
No, Joe.
oh, my bad, that's too logical.
Yes. Because that would mean that we're saying that Eve and 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 Serena
Adam.
Williams and
Oh
and
shit.
and 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 uh and Angela the poetry. Oh, my mind is drawing a blank. All of these
Oh,
strong
Hey,
women, um, all of the all of these women that dated interracially, right? Like if we were holding it up on a logical equity standpoint, then we would say that if if Tay Diggs isn't strong enough to be with a black woman,
then
then
they shouldn't
those
be
women ain't strong enough to be with a
to
black
be with a
man.
black. Right. That's what the logic would be with that thought process.
you know, James Earl Jones said back in like I think it might have been 72. And he was talking about, you know, he was there with his white woman at the time. And we're talking about, you know, why is it that you don't date black women? And he was saying that, you know, after the civil rights movement and the Black Power movement and then move on to the building with the Panthers and so forth, he said our women became too militarized and they became very difficult to deal with and too masculine. He was saying this back in the early 70s. So when I listened to the timeline that Umar used to describe why black women were masculine, this was taking place long before the advent of the crack cocaine era. This was taking long before the whole concept of this institutionalizing of the prison industrial complex run on black men. Go ahead.
The documentary we always point to, the document by 1986, that young lady was a third generation teen mother. Third
Oh, the
generation by
crew of
1986.
86.
Yeah.
Yeah, out of Newark, New Jersey, where they said the men are not not a significant part of the family. So, you know, and it shoots to hell everything else. And if you look at some of the stories, I mean, some of the studies that were done, and some of the reports, you know, they looked at the fact that when other groups of women had access to these social services, that they then started building families with their men. But they looked at the fact that when black women got those services in the 60s and the 70s, how they started becoming more independent. And in fact, you know, from 1956, like 80 to 90% of black households were married and with children. And then how it steadily declined after all these social service programs were put into place. So we know that the black community has been warred on. We know one of the targets of the black community is if you remove the men, the women and children then become part of the state. We know that this is in their writings. This is in all their studies. We've seen this. The problem is, as you brought up before, with Gloria Steinem, with the Glamour
Extra
magazines,
influences. Extra
all these different.
influences.
But even when presented with all this information, you still got some groups of our women who still say, well, it doesn't matter what the information say. This is how I feel, and this is where we're going with this. And you can't fight feelings. You can do whatever you want, but when feelings and emotions and ego is intact, you can't overcome that.
I've been in those conversations.
Bruh, me and Patrick, you remember our first 4-hour conversation?
Yeah.
So me and Patrick, our first 4-hour conversation, almost a decade ago. And it was because he released a video apologizing to black women for all the shortcomings of black men.
Almost a decade ago.
Yeah. Patrick was told to shove his apology up his self-righteous ass over and over and over again. I take this back to the Million Man March, 1995. I was there. I remember when sisters were saying we want to come and support, And all the leaders, not just Farrakhan, but all the leaders, Leon Sullivan from here in Philadelphia, some of the other leaders from all over the country, sisters, this is black men coming to reclaim our place in the community. No lie. We're down there for hours. Look to the right. All we see is a parade of sisters from sororities marching, screaming and hollering, marching forward. And what did the brothers do? Clear the space so that the sisters can get to the front where Farrakhan was speaking, where all the other speakers were speaking. And I say this to say this. Black women, if you want us to be leaders, you have to trust us and respect us enough to let us be leaders. We're going to make mistakes. You are going to have to show us grace in making those mistakes if you truly want the black community to survive. If you want to be sitting on the top of the heap as the queen mother warrior, this, that, and the other, who's ruling and everybody with the iron glove and iron fist, that's perfectly fine. You've seen the results over the last 50 years. This community right now that we're in right now is the result of that mindset, concept, logic that states that anything you can do, I could do better. That's where we are right now. There's no perpetual balance in our community. The boys want to be girls, the girls want to be boys, and then you have everybody saying, well, I can mix it up, and I want to be identified as this, and I want to be identified as that, and nobody wants to be accountable for all the shit that's on the ground right now. We live in it, we walk in it, we smell it every day. If you want to fix it, then we have to change what's going on. And one of the things you're going to have to do is trust those of us who you claim are the people you listen to that are out there in the field doing the work, not just flapping our gaps, but doing the work. That needs to happen.
Yeah.
Sooner than later, or we're not going to have a community to even have these conversations about.
Well, real quick, Joe, I want to and then because I know you're trying to transition.
Sorry about that.
No, it because I'm thinking about one of the points you made, and Joe made the point earlier today when we talk about narratives, right? One of the most dangerous narratives that are used today is a narrative that Umar loves to use. It's this narrative that when the crack epidemic hit and the mass incarceration of black men hit,
and black men weren't raising their kids,
right? All the black men disappeared. This is how we talk. We talk like they came through the community and rounded up 90% of the black men.
Well, I have a problem with him saying, basically making a blanket statement that black men are not in the community helping and fighting for black boys. That is a fucking lie. That's a spit in the face of all the black men who are in the trenches working their ass off, working our asses off to help the black boys that we know, to help the black men that we know. Like there's so many men here in this city who are working their ass off, who are in the trenches, who are doing things to help black boys. We need it. It's a communal effort. It takes both men and women to fix this shit. It takes both men and women to get our boys and girls back on track. But if we just concentrating on the men, do we need more black men in the community? Yes, we do. Yes, we need more black men in the community. But damn it, I thought that statement was a spit in the face. I wouldn't even think about me. I'm just thinking about all the Sam Carters, all the Willie Williams, all the Darren Davises, all the John Browns, all of the Drake Gunnings, all of the Calvin Halls, all of the men who are in the community doing it.
But here, and see, I wasn't even going there with it right now. My whole thing is, again, if we talking about this, like, we got to be honest about the stats. It's like when we talk about the rate at which black men interracial date, and everybody say it's double that of black women. Okay. So black women interracially date at about 13%. Black men interracially date, or I'm sorry, marry at about 25% or so. The vast majority of black people are with other black people. It's the same with the mass incarceration argument. Yes, black men are more likely to have an interaction with the justice system. Yes, that is true. And it is problematic on a lot of levels. But when you start saying sisters can't find no good men because they all
That's
dead or in
bull.
jail,
That's
that is a
bull.
lie.
That's bull. That's bull. It go back to what the young man said. They are not choosing those men, and they
Wait a minute, Joe. They are in jail, but it's not the jail we're talking about. They're in
They in
the
friend zone jail.
friend zone jail, friend zone purgatory.
but right, right, right. But
Listed
also
under
like
laundromat, restaurant, and movie night.
the interracial dating stats, like you were saying, because what he said, black men are dating interracially outside their race, like more than any other race, or double, triple more than any race, or however he
Yeah,
said it.
double more than every other race combined, which couldn't be more inaccurate if he tried.
I couldn't find that statistic.
It don't exist.
Right.
I'm
It's
just
not
that's
even
what I'm
enough
saying.
black men for that to
That's what I'm
happen. Not
saying.
in
Right.
America.
But
He
also he
literally
he
pulled
talked
that out his ass.
he talked about it not being enough black men. Now let's just be real. If take away all disparities. Take away all disparities from black men and black women. If every black man married one black woman, there would still be almost a million more black women who do not and cannot get a man because it's not just it, population size, population
In
wise.
America.
Right. Women just outnumber men, period.
Bruh, bruh. And let's get to this real quick too, because um this whole notion is spoken from a place of race loyalty. It's not race loyalty as to why more sisters aren't dating out. It's just the fact that most
That-
men outside of black men don't find black women desirable. And it's
That's for
because
marriage.
of, as for marriage, they see them desirable in terms of having these
Sex.
set, yeah, well, right. So they fetishize black women. Black women are beautiful. Listen, black women are the most beautiful women on the planet. They have the most variety of flavors out of all women on the planet. And these men know this from other races and things of that nature, but they're not bringing a woman home to mom and dad. You saw, what was the prince dude, the prince that just married Meghan Markle? He had to renounce his ascension to the his access to the throne in order to keep his marriage with Meghan Markle, because their whole family wasn't going for that. Not that he ever had a real, unless it was something crazy that went on, likelihood chance of ever being the king. But I'm just saying, he had to disconnect his access to the family. We are seen, by globally speaking, both black men and black women, um, as bottom feeders to the rest of the world. Now, in the black men are more highly desired outside of in the outside. That's not even deniable, because the numbers just prove it. All the dating sites prove it, things of that nature, and you see the numbers in terms of whatever. Second to white men globally. That's just what it is. But in terms of like race loyalty, I think we have enough black people who are loyal to black people to build with those black people than to fetter about the ones that don't want to deal with members of our community.
Yeah.
And
Go
let's
ahead.
no
Go
and
ahead.
let's be clear about this. Cause I'm over the narrative that we need more black men outside. That's a narrative as well. Let's be clear. I'm not saying we have enough. What I am saying is we need
Need to
more
help
black
the ones that's out
people.
there. Shit.
We need more black people engaged, not just outside, but also supporting those that are outside. You know what I'm saying? We got to bring the village back, and that's going to require that a lot of women acquiesce when it comes to authority over their children in certain regards. You can't be the absolute authority of your child and want other people to help you raise said child. It does not work like that. If you want help raising your child,
You
you
have to give
have to
us some.
relinquish some authority when it comes to that child. Other people have to have a say. Just put it simply. If I'm coming into your child's life as a mentor, as a guide, as an older male role model, somebody that your son can look up to, and you don't give me the authority to assert myself and have some power and influence over your son, there's no purpose in me being there. And matter of fact, you're making things worse, because now your son, who you want to grow up to be a man, is watching a man that you selected him to model himself after be subservient to a woman. Now, unless you want your son to model that, and I understand there are certain situations where men need to allow a woman to take the front. There are certain situations. I'm not one of them dudes that think that every man or men need to always be in the lead in every situation. No, if my wife is a doctor and our kids are having medical problems, I'm gonna shut the hell up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna shut the hell up. Even in terms of traditionally masculine tasks. If my wife is a contractor of some sort, a construction worker of some sort, and I build video games for a living, when it come time to install the door, I'm gonna move out the way and let my wife get the hammer and nails and build a fucking. So we not being stupid about this. The person that's best suited to lead the task leads the task at hand.
Right.
But we also got to understand, for those people that are saying men need to step up, need to take responsibility and accountability for children that are not biologically theirs, that's a two-pronged street. Now, I'm not going to get into, because I don't know that we got time to get into that. But what I will say is, if that's the conversation that we really want to have, women play a role in that too. If I'm stepping in as a mentor to your son, you need to at times shut up and let me be a man for your son.
Look, anybody who's ever spent time mentoring any children, male or female, and who's had a successful mentoring experience, understand that there needs to be complete buy-in from all the adults involved in that child's life, especially the adults immediately involved in that child's life. If all of the adults are not involved, the mentorship is not going to work, because what the mentor pours into that child has to be reinforced when that child goes back into their home environment. And if that's not happening, there's no reciprocal relationship to actually help that child grow. What's the point of mentoring? What's the point of me mentoring the child if it's not going to be reinforced when they go home? Right. So I just want to say this. Also, we need to be clear and make a distinction. When we talk about children being born to single mothers, we need to understand legally, if they're not married, they're considered single. So we need to understand that when they say single mothers, they're talking about women who are not legally married, because there are a number of women who are in relationships when they give birth, but they're not legally married. And a man is present. The CDC, and back in 2013 has already said that the black man was the most involved father in America out of all races of men. That goes into the appeal that black men have internationally with other women, because other women see the qualities that black men have. I'm not saying that black women don't, but we know that loud minority don't. Right?
Well, yeah. One of the things that we really need to talk about is ma'at, and that's balance. And that's what we're talking about. So, and that's what Patrick was just talking about. And so you can't have a situation in which, we have very little to do, very little authority in regards to how the situation has gotten to this point, and then say it's all on you to fix it, and with no help. We're just going to sit back and enjoy ourselves over here basking in the sun while you do all the hard work, and then we'll meet you at the finish line. This is a community issue, and it needs a community solution. And because that's the only way you're going to be able to address the systemic attack on black people. Because make no mistake about it, this attack is about when you destroy the boys of the village, you make the village vulnerable for attack and assaults from all other places, because the boys never reach manhood, and the men are the ones that are going to be destined to protect the village. And so, in order to, you can't protect anything that you can't protect anybody that doesn't respond to your protection. You can't respect anybody. You know, I've been in public with women, and it's like, you know, we'd be out in public and they would, you know, instigate situations because they wanted to prove that I was the alpha man over whoever, all these other men that were out here. And I would literally have to pull them to the side. I'm like, yo, what are you doing? You know, because if you start something, I'm going to be the one that have to fight. And they thought it was cute. And see, that shows that you don't have a respect for the lives of black men, and that you think it's cute to flaunt your man around and to flaunt men around because you can utilize them and weaponize them against these other things. We have to get to a point where there's a mutual respect of life, so that you respect us and cherish us enough to not put us in positions where we're risking our lives on a day-to-day basis because you're having an emotional moment or things of that nature, or you're having an immature moment. We have to be real about a lot of these things. Like this topic, it needs to be unpacked in so many different ways. When we have brothers out here who are raised in a way where they are taught not to respect men because they were told that they were the man of the house from the age of 11 and 12. Then when you approach these young brothers on the street, if you don't have the right skill set, the right tact, you're going to mess around and get murked out here. Mm-hmm. Because these cats out here nowadays, there's video after video after video of brothers checking these young dudes on the street. And then these dudes rolling up like, go ahead, old head, before we, you know, push your wig back, before we jelly your dome, stuff like that. There's video after video after video out here because they're raised to believe they don't have to respect the men that are in the community. We have a lot of work to do when it comes to fixing all of these different issues that's going on. And it's going to take the global community to come together and fix it.
Yeah, but we can't fix this shit with pandering. It doesn't help to pander to one side. You do not solve problems by creating more problems. And that's one of the biggest rubs with looking at this interview is it was pandering to black women and, you know, gaslighting or trying to manipulate men, because the use of you're not a man, if you're not a man, if you're not a man, you're not a man, you know, that's what women do. That's what women do to manipulate men and to get them to do what they want them to do. And my manhood should never be challenged to try to get me to do something that you feel like I should be doing, especially when you have the capacity. Never mind.
No. Cause this gonna be my last word, because I love what you were saying, you know, and I'm mad that you cut it off, but I'm not gonna add to it because I know this is gonna be I think this is gonna be a multi-part show. It's gotta be balanced.
But you also have to be in the trenches too.
There you go.
Yes.
You also have to be in the trenches as well. And if you're not in the trenches, your voice does not matter. Nobody should be trying to criticize anybody who ain't out. If we don't have no proof of you being in your community on a regular basis, helping black boys, what you talking for?
And the point that I was going to make was with regards to these conversations, right? Because, you know, another thing that's frequently done during these conversations is the creation of an artificial imbalance, which is what he did when he said, but if we talking to the men,
Right.
right? These
Mm-hmm.
conversations, it's become so cliche, and it's become such a disingenuous conversation. We're using old tobacco tactics from the 40s and 50s, where when a scientist was given information that showed that tobacco was bad, you know, uh, uh, they would say, well, no, we not, they would either move the goalposts and say, we're not talking about that, or they would say, well, you got to have a balanced perspective come in. You got to allow me equal time to talk. And they will move things around during the conversation. In these conversations right here, what's become what has been happening of late is we need to be having a fair and balanced conversation about how men and women are messing up, and you can't
Yes.
do that if you're only talking to the men about the men and to the women about the women, and the women are talking to the women and the men are talking to the men. That is not a conversation that's going to create solutions. They need to be talked about together. If the brothers are messing up, the sisters are impacted by it. And so the
Mm-hmm.
sisters deserve a place in that conversation. Likewise, if the sisters are messing up, the
It's
brothers are
impacted.
impacted by it. So the brothers deserve a place in that conversation. In that conversation, those two conversations need to be happening together in the form of one conversation. We can't
Eh,
keep doing this whole, well, let the sisters talk to the sisters and the brothers talk to the brothers,
It's
and the
not
sisters
working.
talking on Venus and the brothers talking on Mars, and
It's
ain't
not
nobody talking in
working.
the space in between. That's not how this works. So I agree with what the young brothers was doing, and I do think the young brothers should have went in that conversation not as students or as little brothers. They should have went into that conversation as equals, with the understanding that this man has life experience and age that I should give some respect to. But I'm out here dealing with these women. I know what I'm talking about, and he got to respect that. So
Right.
when they started saying, well, the women this and that's not a what about usism. That's not a what aboutism. That's them calling attention to the fact that you're blaming me for something that's not my responsibility and not my fault. And you wouldn't
Or
even give them a chance to articulate why that's not those young brothers' responsibility and it's not their fault. All of the points Umar would bring up about how black women have allegedly been failed, because that's another conversation regarding how they've been holding the community down. Them young brothers out there, 18, 19, 20, 21, all the way up to 25, 30, they don't have nothing to do with that. And the young girls that are their age don't have a right to hold them responsible for that. They mothers, okay, you want to have a chip on your shoulder? Cool. Get therapy. You're wrong the moment you pass that down to your daughter.
and that's exactly how it's passed down. And to further elaborate into that point, they don't have no control over what these women do. If you talk about going into the house and taking two of these two boys out the house, but you don't offer no requisite redirection for the women, what do you think they're going to do with that free time that you just allowed it to? Most likely the same thing they've been doing before, probably have more kids. That's just being real and honest about the situation. They're not going to take that as an opportunity to improve their condition, rest in their femininity, which is some bullshit I've been hearing for the longest. And they're not going to do that. Your resume is the best predictor of your future. And unless you have some type of drastic change in your life altering event, you're going to continue to do those things. Another thing too that was said that I thought was extremely disingenuous was the fact that once those brothers actually came to a point where they were pointing out that they shouldn't be responsible for these particular decisions, that they were good men, the conversation went from being personal to system to being systemic. That's
Mm-hmm.
moving the goalpost. Either you're going to talk about the systems or you're going to talk about that, because you don't hold them. You're the, you, and I'm talking directly to you, Umar. You're the one who came in there with the expertise historically. You were the one that came there as the Jegna. Then as a Jegna, you teach. You don't admonish these young brothers for stuff they don't know. You teach them what they don't know. and you don't come up there and put because the responses that I saw from women when they looked at those clips, oh, Dr. Umar putting them in their place. Oh, Dr. Umar put them on the run. I didn't hear anything about the solutions that should have been provided. I didn't hear anything about the women and the people that were cheering this on. I didn't hear anything from the perspective of these young men being taught a new way to see things and given a different light on how to create productive future for Black boys. And that solution was bullshit. Because where are these men going to find this particular time to do that? These productive brothers who are already working their asses off. And see, this is the thing, bro. And I've been really like holding back not holding back, but I've been trying to because we two Philly brothers. But I'm gonna just say it like this: the stuff you critique those brothers for are the same talking points you had 10 years ago. You talked about how Black men were disenfranchised. You talked about the need to build schools because Black women were ruining Black children and Black boys in particular. Your first attempt at getting to school was a college campus out there, I believe, is in Maryland. It was a college campus because you said you needed to take these boys out of the houses of these women because you didn't want them to infect the minds of these young men. You can't be swinging from both sides of the fence, bro. That's lukewarm. That's being lukewarm in this situation. And it's pandering. And we can't keep having that going on if we're talking about real solutions here. Because like Joe brought up earlier, what problem did you solve by going on that show? All you did was create a bigger target for people who already are blaming Black men for every goddamn thing. We don't have a place of grace nowhere. We don't have a place where we can rest our head anywhere. So, you just create a bigger bullseye for us. Go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry.
You seen the post that the chick made who snatched the mic from the white lady at graduation. She literally said, "I'm a Black woman. I can do no wrong." That's bullshit.
Yeah, she said, "I'm
Look,
always right. I'm a Black woman in America."
Right.
Yep.
Like that. Like all Black people listen to me, especially all adult Black people. Oh yeah, your ass you responsible for your behavior. You are capable. You will be held accountable for your behavior. Yes, you are. We're not listening to that shit Umar talking about. Every adult who's a part of this shit is going to be held accountable for their individual behavior. Racism is a team sport. And if it's a team sport, everybody on the team has to be held accountable for how they behave themselves. Everybody. You don't get no escape. We all, both Black men and Black women, we both went through the atrocities of America, of slavery, of Jim Crow. We went through that together. I want people to stop acting like Black men was at Disneyland while slavery was happening. All right. We went through that together. But going back to what Pat said and PC said earlier, Black women are just given more grace. Not by all, but that loud minority. Right? There's a silent majority. Silent majority, y'all need to speak the hell up. But
hurry up and build the damn school, bro.
Why you playing? I'm gonna throw this for real. I done been part of an organization that's built 2 schools in the time period where you've been trying to get funding to build 1. And I know plenty of other people that's building schools. So, it's one of them things, bro. When you start throwing rocks, you gotta make sure you don't live in a glass house.
Well, I mean, also, it's been about 14 years, but we'll give you 10 years. Those young men who were 10 are now 20. So if you're adamant about helping Black boys get the goddamn school done, but guess what? You don't have to have a school building to go out and teach young Black boys, though. Like the King Randall down in Texas, 21-year-old boy started a school in his living room with like 5 or 6 young men. Started there and just grew from there because he was serious about helping Black boys. If we're serious about helping each other, we're serious about changing our situation, we got to take the proper actions, but stop buying into the bullshit. Stop pandering. There are a lot of men, because once again, 2-3 weeks ago, we did the show on on the black men with Dr. Wilson's theory. So you already know we go in on black men, we go in on black women, we go in on everybody. No black person alive is above criticism. I'm gonna say that again. No black person alive, no human being, period. But since we talking about us, no black person alive is above criticism. But if you're gonna criticize, like Pat said, make sure you got your stuff together. Make sure you got your, because right now you're screaming black boys, black boys, black boys, black boys, but you got the opportunity to help them. And your thing is, I need to finish my school. Do you? But stop. But the pandering has to stop from everybody, from both sides. There are black women out there who be pandering to black men. Y'all stop all that. It's not helping. If you are giving information, or you are in the community, you're an advocate or activist, or you're a spokesperson or whatever, and every time you show up, or not every time, but there are times where you show up or you speak and problems occur, more problems occur than solutions. There's a problem. That's an issue. But also, one other thing, let's stop acting like we have the answer and the solution to racism. We don't. We don't. Nobody does. None of us does. That's why it's still happening. Show me where it slowed down. Right. Because nobody has the answer. So let's stop acting like this one person or that one. None of us has the answer. We're trying to come up with these answers. And racism is a team sport. God damn it. And if we're not playing it as a team, black women, we need you. And black men need black women, and black women need black men. We need each other. And our children need black men and black women to be getting along. Fuck the bullshit. We got to get along. And if you're not adult enough to do that, go stand your ass in the corner. And we're going to do this over here.
And I just want to add one thing to that too, Joe, real quick. Sisters, please understand, we're talking straight to you because we got love and respect for you. And we're talking real. We're not talking this from a position of vitriol, anger, or disdain. We're talking to you because we're in dire straits in our community. And if we don't act on this situation quick, if we don't have real conversations about what needs to be done, if we pander, like Joe was saying earlier, then we're not going to solve any of this shit, and we're going to be a relic like the dinosaurs you see, in museums now. And I'm done.
Man, if your ass ain't have no problem with us talking, calling out black men and holding black men to task a couple weeks ago on that show, if your ass did not have a problem with that, your ass bet not have a problem with this. Stop the bullshit. Grow the fuck up and stop the bullshit. We out. Joseph Ward, Super Patrick, Professor Carl Tone. Man, for real though, man, we ain't got no time for the bullshit though. If you didn't have a problem with us calling men out and having that show breaking down the psychology behind why men behave like little boys and are considered little boys, if you didn't have a problem with that, if you agreed with the stuff you didn't thought we was gonna say nothing about both sides. Why? You must not have been watching this channel long enough. We're serious about fixing our situation, and it takes both of us. We both fucking up. Both black men and black women fucking up. Both of us fucking up. And we got to fix this. All right, let's stop the bullshit. Joseph Ward, Professor Carl Tone Jones, Super Pat. Hey, 2 hours. It don't matter. We got it done. We out.